Well, there's a new tell-all book, or at least it proposes to be, from somebody who knows it all, former Obama body man. That's the person who shadows the president, or whoever the candidate is, carrying the code here, making sure he knows who he's about to say hello to. But somebody who is as close with confidence as just about anybody on the trail. Love, like all these so-called body men, was the ultimate personal assistant with the president in most rooms and meetings throughout the campaign and into the president's first term. Among the anecdotes, apparently in the book, is the time Obama walked into Love's hotel room and found a woman in Reggie's bed. Not that woman. Jokes about strip clubs in Vegas. Just jokes. Mr. Obama never went to one. Even stories about meetings between Obama and Hillary Clinton, and reportedly, Andrew, even a heated exchange they had on the tarmac or something along one of the campaign stops.
Yeah,
right?
Love says that Obama knew that he was going to beat Hillary when Hillary was sort of panicky and lost a little bit of composure on the tarmac during that meeting, and Obama stayed cool. He sort of sensed that the pressure was getting to her and that she was going to crack.
Okay, you guys have worked on campaigns and with some high-profile candidates, so I'm sure anybody who's worked in a campaign or covered one knows that things are said in heats of the moment.
Let's assume they're not watching,
right.
by the way.
Yeah. So, but my point is,
just between us.
Is there a spoken rule, let alone an unspoken one, that when the door closes and you're in a strategy session or whatever else, you're cursing out the candidate or even the family of the candidate or whatever else, that never gets repeated? Or once the campaign's over, people can say whatever they're going to say?
We're lawyers without the conflict of interest or the confidentiality that's respected in law. If we shared those stories in the wrong format, in the wrong audience, like the show to some extent, we wouldn't be asked back for another campaign, because who would trust you? Remember, they let you into their lives. You're there with their families, their children, their co-workers, everybody else at one point or another. How do you handle yourself there, and what do you talk about that when you're outside that room now? You have to be very careful.
It is surprising to me there haven't been more stories, especially in the 21st century and the instant consumption age we're in, where you don't hear more behind-the-scenes story from folks really close to it. It's certainly never attributable, but do you know what I mean? Well, that hasn't come out really as much.
It could be the 24-hour news cycle too, right?
Yeah.
This stuff's coming out constantly on a campaign. There's no such thing as keeping a secret. There are leaks, all the time.
Do you also handle it different campaigns? Because remember the Mitt Romney 47% moment? That was in a private room. Somebody had a phone. Do you handle campaigns differently now because the phones are ubiquitous everywhere? Somebody might be recording a conversation for all you know, right?
Oh, yeah. I'd be lying if I said there were not conversations that were had, outdoors even.
Yeah.
I mean, you're very careful at times.
It would have been different 20 years ago, right?
Oh, I think so, sure, because
right?
people were just...
Reggie Love, though, had one of the greatest jobs in politics, I think.
Yeah.
Because, I remember when I was younger, I did some of that stuff and some racing off, but it was I would love to have done that. Charlie on the West Wing, he's the one that had that job there. It's a fantastic job. You were at a seat of power without the responsibility, so to speak. You're responsible to the man, or woman, whoever the principal is. It's a fantastic seat on history, and I think his book probably will be pretty illuminating in that regard, too.
He's not going to tell any of the real secrets. This is a close friend of President Obama's. It's a no-no. I know from the journalism point of view, my rule of thumb has always been treat people the way you want to be treated. So, for example, Bloomberg. The mayor was known to have a glass of wine at lunch, and he often would make headlines after he had his glass of wine. And so he would say things to me that were really off the record. And I would catch his eye wandering into places where they really shouldn't have been wandering. And I'm like, Mr. Mayor, you got to stop doing this. I don't work for you. I know you're a billionaire, but, there has to be a line. And he would say things, incredible comments. But my rule, Richard, always was, and I think the rule of everyone here was, if we're on the record, got you. But if we're not on the record, I didn't really see it.
But it's that gray areas where sometimes
It's extremely gray.
when they don't say it's off
It's
the record.
extremely gray.
And they say something, and then you get co-opted in a way where you're not friends, but you're
You
more
do
than
get
something,
co-opted.
because you get, and you're like, don't keep talking, you got to stop, and then it's that tough line. But I just think, don't you think in reality, the way that we operate, as you said, in this 24-hour news cycle now, there's going to be more cases where people are going to spill.
Well, Mark Halperin John
But those
Heilman.
are journalists. I'm talking about guys like you, guys that work on
spoke,
campaigns.
but they spoke to journalists.
Yeah.
They spoke to campaign and got guys on background or
Yep.
even some
Yep.
attributed.
Yep.
And they got some real good stories
did.
about how candidates were treated behind the
both
scenes.
books. Yep.
Debate prep is always a big one, and what gaffes occurred during there and how they had to bring somebody up.
saying-
Expectations and debates that are put out there.
You're saying it depends on how the
Well,
campaign ends?
think about how the campaign ends too. Was
Yeah.
you know, they
better it
obviously
was
had
with
they had
Palin and
vi-
McCain,
That's
yeah.
exactly where I was going here, which is you saw the movie that was done, and
Yeah.
you know, Steve Schmidt, actually a former partner at Mercury where I work, you know, he did his tell-all, and that's part of what that movie was all about.
Yep.
Which was what an embarrassment this woman was, and what an embarrassment she was as a just decision for a vice presidential candidate. But yeah, I think it's a lot on how these things end. The president gets the joke here too. Reggie Love had a sweet gig, and he gets the idea that you got to cash in on your great experience, and he's leveraging that
He made
for a
50
book
grand
deal.
a
Why
year
not?
for working 7 days a week for 3 years straight or whatever. Plus the campaign paid him nothing. Don't forget, Mary Madeline.
But he
James,
got his law degree. He could go to any law firm he wants
but
in the world. Yeah.
Mary Madeline and James Carville wrote their book.
Yeah.
Back in '92. I mean, this goes on.
Right, but they don't. We still haven't seen, or I don't remember seeing the book that really eviscerates their former employer. right?
But that's the line you probably don't
Yeah.
cross. I mean, the stories you tell about people, even among friends when you're having drinks, stuff
Yeah.
like that, it's how close it was to the event of what took
Yep.
place and so forth. It's who you're sharing it with. It's sometimes you don't mention names, but you say, so yeah, this one thing happened
I
one
got to hit a
time.
quick break. We come
But
back. We're going to talk about the GOP field and how it's shaping up right now. We'll be right back.